Here is the third and final part of my complete ranking of all NBA teams. These remaining teams will be graded by their playoff percentage, winning, championships, and many more. If you haven't checked out parts 1 and 2 yet, then do that first. But here are the top 10 best teams in NBA history. Number 10, Portland Trailblazers. The Portland Trailblazers entered the league with a hot start. In just their 7th season, they won the NBA Finals, largely thanks to MVP Bill Walton. But, well, then they started cooling down. Sure, it may sound good making the postseason 21 straight years from the 80s to 90s, but when you factor in 2 finals defeats and drafting Sam Bowie over Michael Jordan, it sounds pretty bad. Damian Lillard has been an impressive superstar in Portland as of today, but let's face it, he's not gonna win anything there. Nevertheless, Portland is one of the more underrated teams in the league given their good statistics. Score 29.3. Number 9, Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers probably should be higher than number 9. Given their all-star players and huge market, they haven't been that productive over the last 40-ish years. But let's review their history. In the 50s, the Sixers used to be located in Syracuse as a Nationals. They won a title, moved to Philly, and Wilt Chamberlain joined the squad. When he wasn't sleeping with 10,000 women, Wilt was putting up unworldly stats and winning NBA title number 2. Title 3 would come from Dr. J and Moses Malone, who swept their opponents. Then the slump of the franchise occurred. All of the Sixers' all-time greats retired, leaving room for only one man, Allen Iverson. Iverson would revolutionize the game in many ways, but he never won a title. 10-win seasons, trusting the process, and a very confident player named Ben Simmons brings them to where they are today. Score 30.4. Number 8, Houston Rockets. The Rockets drafted the first overall pick Hakeem Olajuwon in 1984. 10 years later, he led them to their first NBA title. With Jordan still in retirement, the Rockets took control of the league again in the 90s to repeat as champs. This two-peat would prove to be the peak of the Rockets franchise. They haven't really been able to get over the hump, even when they won 65 games in 2018 with Chris Paul and James Harden. Score 35.6. Number 7, Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks may come as a surprise, since they haven't really done much outside of a couple years. But if you look at their all-time stats, the Bucks are one of the better teams in the league. Of course, as of writing this, Milwaukee just lost as a 1 seed in 5 games in the first round, so that doesn't sound all that great. But you can't forget that just 2 years earlier, Giannis the Greek Freak won the NBA title with a monster series against Phoenix. And if we backtrack exactly 50 years earlier, the Bucks held 2 of the greatest players from their era, Oscar Robertson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. These stars would help them win a title that year, making them 2 for 2. Score 40.3. Now these next few spots are mainly known for their dynasties. Number 6, Golden State Warriors. Other than Rick Barry winning the finals in '75, the only other time Golden State has been relevant are in the 2010s. Steph Curry, a three-point machine, was added to the lineup, and with the addition of Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant, the Warriors built a super team. The Splash Bros would ultimately reach 5 consecutive finals from 2015 to 19. In 4 of those years, they faced LeBron and the Cavs. The Warriors would dominate LeBron in those finals, except for 1 year in 2016, where they, choked a 3-1 lead. If that wasn't bad enough, they also ironically won 73 games that year, an NBA record. Anyway, with a recent title in 2022, it doesn't look like the Warriors are stopping soon. Score 43.1. Number 5, Miami Heat. The Miami Heat are actually a pretty young franchise. They've played just as many games as the Magic and Timberwolves, but the only difference is that they have 3 titles up their belt. The main man on the Heat was Dwayne Wade. He alone would win the 2006 NBA title against the Mavericks. But when LeBron James joined the squad in 2010, they turned into a powerhouse. It's strange how Wade and James couldn't have won 4 or 5 titles instead of just 2. The only times they really lost was when they either got lazy or too confident. But despite that, the Heat are still one of the winningest teams in the NBA. Score 46.8. Number 4, Chicago Bulls. Well, lucky for Chicago, they rank 4th all time because they had this guy named Michael Jordan play for them. Chicago was basically irrelevant until they drafted Jordan in '84. In fact, I'd say the Bulls became irrelevant once he retired too. His stats at the shooting guard position would prove to be revolutionary, some of the best the league had seen in some time. But he couldn't win it all by himself. Once Scottie Pippen joined the squad in the 90s, Chicago finally started winning. This resulted in 6 NBA titles, 5 MVP awards for the GOAT MJ, and some of the best teams ever assembled in league history. Score 68.8. Number 3, San Antonio Spurs. Just like the last few teams, the Spurs are only known for their dynasty. But this dynasty spanned over multiple decades instead of just one. First, the Spurs had drafted David Robinson, a monster center in the 80s, but once they got Tim Duncan, they finally started winning. Duncan would become a quiet and humble great all-around player who would help San Antonio win 5 titles over the 2000s and 2010s. What makes this even more impressive is that San Antonio isn't a big market. They don't throw around money to build super teams. Coach Greg Popovich took their raw talent and turned it into one of the best dynasties this league has seen. Anyway, the Spurs have the greatest winning percentage, greatest percentage of making the playoffs, and are the 3rd best franchise in the NBA. Score 77.9. Number 2, Boston Celtics. Boston could be at number 1 if it weren't for their lack of success over the last 35 years. The only time they won a title then was when Kevin Garnett joined them in 2008. But starting all the way back in the 50s, star center Bill Russell led Boston to their first of 17 later titles. Later on throughout the 60s, Russell, with the help of Bob Cousy, Sam Jones, and John Havlicek, would win 12 NBA titles, regarded as the greatest dynasty in sports history.
In the conference finals, the up-and-coming New York Knicks expected to walk over the Celtics, but Boston ran past their young rivals and all the way to the finals.
Later on in the 70s, Havlicek and Cowens continued the dynasty with 2 more titles. The success finally seemed over in the 1980s, especially since competition had gotten much better. But then came Larry Bird, the new face of the Celtics. Bird didn't have a lot of athleticism, but he used his grit and determination to win 3 MVPs and 3 NBA titles. Tied for the most NBA titles at 17 in league history, the Celtics can only expect to add to those these next few years. Score 96.8. And number 1, Los Angeles Lakers. The only team that is tied with the Boston Celtics at 17 titles are the LA Lakers. And while most of the Celtics' success came from 40-50 years ago, the Lakers have proved to be more consistent. The Boston-LA rivalry really sparked in the 1960s when they faced each other in 6 NBA Finals. The Lakers already had 4 titles up to that point from Minnesota, but they couldn't cash one in against Boston. They now had some catching up to do. Jerry West finally got a ring in '72 for LA, but it was really the 80s when they started catching up. Star point guard Magic Johnson joined in 1980, and he would win the title in his rookie season.
Short rebound by Worthy. Off to the main man, Magic Johnson. Great pass to Cooper. His layup is good.
Get it. The rebound is off to Brooks again. Puts it up. Kareem blocks it. Great play. To Cooper. To Nixon. It's 2-on-2. Walk down the middle of Cooper. Throws it over Walton and scores it. That was against Magic. Drive on Magic. Beats Magic. Puts it up and Kareem sends it back. Ball is free and McGee has got it. McGee against Conlon. He's around him. He's all the way. Slam dunk. You don't think that kid's got some talent?
The next decade LA had success was in the 2000s. The Lakers picked up Kobe Bryant and Shaq, and both would become superstars in their 3-ring tenure. Once Shaq left, the Black Mamba continued even further, winning 2 more titles, scoring 81 points, and retiring as one of the all-time greats in Lakers history. As of today, LeBron James came along and gave LA their 17th ring in 2020. So as one of the winningest teams in NBA history, the Lakers' score is a spot-on 100. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.